Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fed News, your August through September Year 2 edition. Now, of course, I spoke last week about how the month was going to change, and now two brands are here, so let's get started. So, first off in wrestling news, Tony D'Angelo is in talks with UWA Developmental, and Ahmed Johnson has officially signed with UWA Developmental. I apologize for the photo there. Um, though he has signed with it, I did not have a chance to take pictures of him yet, as he's not arrived to the camp, training camp yet, so his head's missing. But breaking news, the UWA has announced that it will be creating two brands, the UWF and the UCW, with each roster having 50 wrestlers. There will be 7 championships on each brand, including an NWA US tag, and it's actually going to be a UWF USA tag for minor show, not the NXT tag. Bragging rights will take place with both brands competing against each other in a best of 7 series, losing brand having to fire one wrestler for the remainder of the year. There's also going to be All Out War, which will be a 20-man battle royal, 10 from each, and each time someone's eliminated from one brand, another person comes in. That will also lead to someone being fired. And of course, the last one will be called Brand Warfare, which again, losing brand will have to fire one of their superstars at random. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up with what roster. Of course, injured superstars can't take place or are part of this event as well if they're injured during those pay-per-views. More on that later. The UWF has become Raw and SmackDown, with UCW having Nitro and Thunder. So it's going to be 12 pay-per-views each with 3 events, And this new brand debuts after Starrcade, before the pay-per-view becomes UCW exclusive. Now, technically, I altered it because I realized I already did it. So you had SummerSlam, so Starrcade will be UCW's. SummerSlam's taking place instead, so Starrcade is missing from the lineup. If you watch the first year, it's going to be towards December, so it's going to be coming up, and it's only UCW exclusive. New rules now: the light heavyweight title, the hardcore UWF US tag team are exclusive only to the SmackDown brand. The cruiserweight, the hardcore, and the UCW US tag team are only exclusive to Thunder. So there's only 3 belts, 4 champions total, in the minor brands. Of course, there's always 10 losses in a row equals being fired. Again, that's a 10-to-1 ratio, so if they have 1 win and they get 12 losses, they're fired. Of course, everything is still kind of the same there. So let's get started with week 1. So Thunder kicks off with Chronic defeating Power and Glory by pinfall. Eric Young defeats Raven by pinfall. And the main event sees The Rock defeat Rey Mysterio and Ken Shamrock by pinfall. Over to WCW Nitro now as Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong defeat the Highlanders by pinfall. Motor City Machine Guns defeat Doug Furnace and Phil LaFron by pinfall. Don Morocco defeats Paul Orndorff and Stevie Ray to retain his TV title. Randy Orton defeats Rhino and Booker T by pinfall. And the main event sees The Big Show defeat Sting and Macho Man Randy Savage to become the new UCW US champion. Over to SmackDown now as the Dudleys defeat the Hart Dynasty by pinfall. New Age Outlaws defeats Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan by pinfall. The main event sees Rick Rude defeat Ezekiel Jackson to become the new Hardcore champion. Over to Raw, though, as LOD defeats Sylvan and Jake Gemini. Chris Candido defeats Jey Uso and Jerry Lynn by pinfall. The Fiend and Braun Breaker defeats Randy Rose and Marty Jannetty by pinfall. William Regal defeats Cesaro, Owen Hart, and Shinsuke Nakamura by pinfall. And the main event sees Johnny Gargano defeat Yokozuna by countout. The UCW match card looks like it will be Sting versus Andre versus Rhino versus Booker T. The winner of that will be in the main event. Bam Bam looks to take on Alex Wright in a singles match. Juventud Guerrero versus Don Morocco for the TV title. Motor City Machine Guns versus Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly for the tag titles. These are crowning championship match. Randy Orton versus Macho Man Randy Savage, with the winner of that going to the main event. And Hardcore Holly versus The Big Show for the US title. On the pay-per-view now is Thunder card took place as Austin Theory defeats Test by pinfall. The Rock becomes the first UCW Hardcore champion, defeating Eric Young. The Rock and Roll Express defeats Chronic to retain their US Tag Team titles. And Rey Mysterio defeats Juventud Guerrera by pinfall for the Cruiserweight title. So because of that, Fall Brawl takes place with Rhino defeating Sting, Andre the Giant, Booker T to advance to the finals. Bam Bam Bigelow defeats Alex Wright by pinfall. Don Morocco defeats Juventud to retain his TV title. Randy Orton defeats Macho Man Randy Savage by pinfall, so he'll go to the main event against Rhino. Motor City Machine Guns defeat Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly to become the tag champions. Hardcore Holly defeats The Big Show to win the US title. And Rhino defeats Randy Orton to become the UCW World Heavyweight Champion. Over to week 2 now. Crash Holly defeats Moose by pinfall. Adam Cole and Bobby Fish defeats Trevor Murdoch and Tatanka by pinfall. The main event sees Kurt Angle defeat The Rock by pinfall to become the new UCW Hardcore Champion. The Rock actually got injured in the match. Over to Nitro now. Hurricane defeats Zeus by pinfall. The Big Show defeats Alex Wright by pinfall. Doug Furnas and Phil LaFron defeat Lance Cade and Mike Kanellis by pinfall. Cassius Ohno defeats Muhammad Ali by pinfall. The main event sees Bam Bam Bigelow defeat Macho Man Randy Savage by pinfall. Over to SmackDown now as Norman Smiley and Reggie defeat Singh Brothers by pinfall. Psychosis defeats Kevin Sullivan by pinfall. And Ezekiel Jackson defeats Rick Rude to regain his hardcore title. Over to Raw now as Tyson O'Neil defeats Carl Anderson by pinfall. Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel defeat Larry Zbyszko and Randy Rhodes by pinfall. A-Train defeats Bob Backlund by pinfall. The Fiend and Braun Breaker defeat LOD by pinfall. And the main event sees Spike Dudley defeat Johnny Gargano to retain the UWF International Championship. Over week 3 now as Test and Ken Shamrock vs. Power and Glory ends a double countout. The Rock has officially been announced will be out for 4 months with a torn abdomen. Adam Cole and Bobby Fish defeats Chronic by pinfall. The main event sees Crash Holly defeat Kurt Angle by pinfall to become the Hardcore Champion. Over to Nitro now as Randy Orton defeats Hardcore Holly by pinfall. Andre the Giant defeats Juventud Guerrera by pinfall. The Highlanders defeat Cassius Ohno and Muhammad Ali by pinfall. Harlem Heat defeats Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly by pinfall. And Bam Bam Bigelow defeats Don Morocco by pinfall to become the new UCW Television Champion. Over to SmackDown, Simon Diamond and Simon Dean defeat the Singh Brothers. Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan defeat the Hart Dynasty. And the main event sees Giant Gonzalez defeat Ezekiel Jackson and become a 2-time UWF Hardcore Champion. Over to Raw now as Jey Uso defeats Sylvan by pinfall. Tyson O'Neil and A-Train ends in a double countout. Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel defeat Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Jerry Lynn defeats Carl Anderson. The main event sees Johnny Gargano and Owen Hart end in a time limit draw. On to week 4 now as Test and Ken Shamrock defeat the Power and Glory. Raven defeats Crash Holly to become the Hardcore Champion. So that belt's just changing hands left and right. Rey Mysterio defeats Austin Theory in the main event by pinfall. Over to Nitro, Big Show defeats the Hurricane. Mike Kanellis and Lance Cade pick up a victory over the Tag Team Champions in a non-title match. Harlem Heat defeats the Highlanders and Doug Furnas and Phil LaFron by pinfall. Andre the Giant defeats Macho Man Randy Savage, and the main event sees Hardcore Holly defeat Randy Orton in a non-title match. Over to SmackDown, Hart Dynasty defeats the Singh Brothers by submission. Big Boss Man Bull Buchanan defeats Simon Diamond and Simon Dean by pinfall, and the main event sees Giant Gonzalez retain over Kevin Sullivan in a hardcore main event. Over to Raw now as A-Train defeats Titus O'Neil. Jey Uso defeats Jake Gemini. Slater, Gabriel, and Gargano defeat Yoko, Owen Hart, and Candido by pinfall. Cesaro defeats Shinsuke Nakamura by pinfall. And main event sees Spike Dudley defeat Jerry Lynn to retain his international title. The pay-per-view now is Unforgiven card. Looks like Jerry Lynn versus Chris Candido. Owen Hart and Yokozuna look to take on Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. Johnny Gargano versus Spike Dudley for the national title. LOD versus Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Braun Breaker and The Fiend look to try to take the tag titles from the Nasty Boys. William Regal will also take on Roddy Piper for the IC title, which Piper has been absent the entire month from. And Cody Rhodes and Batista, who have both been absent from the card, will do battle in a rematch from their previous match. Cody Rhodes will actually be trying to... I messed the card up. It's actually Cody Rhodes the champion versus the challenger Batista for the world title. Over to SmackDown now as Bull Buchanan defeats Ezekiel Jackson. Giant Gonzalez retains over Boss Man. The Dudley Boys become the new UWF US Tag Team Champions, defeating the New Age Outlaws. And Psychosis defeats Brian Pillman in a huge upset to become the new UWF Light Heavyweight Champion. So over to Unforgiven, Chris Candido defeats Jerry Lynn by the help of Brian Pillman actually debuting or returning and costing Jerry Lynn. Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel defeat Owen Hart and Yokozuna by pinfall. Spike Dudley retains over Johnny Gargano for the international title. Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura defeat LOD in an upset. Braun Breaker and Fiend become new tag team champions, defeating the Nasty Boys by pinfall. William Regal defeats Roddy Piper to become the UWF Intercontinental Champion. In the main event, Cody Rhodes defeats Batista by pinfall. Batista actually injured during the match, and the diagnosis after the card was over is that he's out for 6 months. Torn bicep. So Batista's injured for 6 months. Rock's injured for 4 months. Be an interesting start to the year. The UCW match card will take place next show, and that's going to be Dom Rocker versus Bam Bam Bigelow for the TV title. The Big Show versus Kurt Angle. The Highlanders versus Doug Furnas and Phil Lefron. Randy Orton versus Hardcore Holly for the U.S. title. Harlem Heat versus Motor City Machine Guns for the tag belts. Zeus and Lance Cade, Mike Kanellis versus Ono, Ali, and Hurricane in a 6-man match. The main event will see Macho Man Randy Savage versus Rhino for the world title. Here are your UWF champions. As you can see, it's a little bit nicer. You can see them a little better, not too squished up and not too heightened. But they're the champions for the UWF. There's your UCW champions. That's all for this week. Tune in next week and find out the results of Halloween Havoc as well as No Mercy.